Owning This Life family, it's me MJ, and I'm so glad to have you guys back. So I'm glad that you've joined us, and today we're going to speak to someone I've admired forever. I've been watching her grow, watching her journey, and when I found a little bit more about her history, I was actually quite surprised that she's been through such deep struggles, but she's come so far. So I want to welcome Nicole Capper. How are you, hon?
How are you, MJ?
I'm very well, thanks. And yourself? How's it been? How's lockdown? How's 2020 been in general for you?
If someone says the word new normal one more time.
Yeah. Like that's the buzzword.
It's been a whole shift in mindset for everybody. I think we all got into this really comfortable space in thinking we know what's expected of our little white picket fence life that we've created. We kind of know what could potentially go wrong, and then suddenly there's this massive world disaster that nobody was ever prepared for. And I will hesitate to say that it's good, because I do believe all pain is good, which we'll get to, but with a lot of sensitivity to the fact that people have lost livelihoods and lives. So it's been a tragic year.
Yeah. I think for a lot of us, we came into 2020 thinking it's the new, decade. We're going to be pushing new amazing things. I certainly was sitting back comfortably thinking this is going to be an utterly amazing year. And I know you leading up to 2020, you're busy with a ton of different things. Yeah. What have you had to do since lockdown started? With the opportunities you were busy with, and you were doing mountain climbing and all that?
So I miss a lot of things. I'm not going to lie, my events were the center point of my life. Planning events, emceeing and keynoting at events, and then climbing and traveling and adventuring, going on uprising mountain climbs and taking people with me. That was my life. And it's been tough because I miss a lot of those things, but so healthy for me personally, because I needed a space to sort of reassess where I'm pouring my energy. And it's been a pause, but then carrying forward during a tough time, just readjusting the rudder a little bit in a few areas to focus my energy on things that are actually going to bring tangible value instead of throwing my energy everywhere.
But you have good experience with doing this. I mean, you've had a lot of really hard things in your life that you've had to deal with, that I think a lot of people who see you now on ENTA and you're really active in all the events that you're busy with, they don't realize that this looking all, how can I say, like you've made it sort of, comes with a lot of hardship and struggle, and sometimes struggle that you didn't even call into your life. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about your history, some of the things you really struggled with, but that has kind of put you in a position to navigate through this time a little, not easier, but with a little more consciousness of what's going on around you?
I think that's the word, consciousness. I love the way you say it, because I must say I grew up with a bit of a suburban white privilege. I grew up in a safe, secure environment. My parents definitely struggled. They weren't from South Africa, but I had an education. I had a roof over my head. I had two siblings that I adore. I had a really safe, good, educated childhood. And I got to be graduate as a pharmacist, which was a privilege in itself. And then life starts unfolding and things start to happen. And I always knew what I wanted to achieve in my life, but it's taken me a while to unpack that because of a lot of these self-inflicted and societal and background-inflicted limitations and expectations for my life. And opening up that expectation and gaining a new consciousness took pain. It took a lot of pain.
Yes.
For me, it started, everything kind of unraveled with a diagnosis of my little girl's cystic fibrosis condition, which is a degenerative lung condition. She battles with lung function. She sits there for 4 to 6 hours every day in nebulizing, physiotherapy. And now it's our new normal. Don't say new normal. But back then, I had this picture perfect white picket fence life. And I thought that, have a pigeon pair, have a boy, have a girl, happily married forever, career as a pharmacist, check. Surely I should be happy, successful, and praised. Yes. Good life. And at the end of the day, that's not how it turns out in most cases, because life happens.
Yes.
And we're poorly prepared for that. I certainly was. And I never forget sitting there in ICU holding this little girl in my arms. This is my baby girl. She is 3 weeks old at the time and is struggling for air. She's on oxygen. They're tube feeding her to try and get her to put on weight because she can't absorb any nutrients. And I thought, what now? What am I going to do with my life? Now I am the mom of a sick child. And I just sat there thinking, what a burden to put on a kid.
Yeah.
And then she's one day going to grow up and say that my mom's life was my
sacrificed
fault. Never. So I made it then my mission that I will be all she needs is an example. I don't need to be her doctor and her physio and her nutritionist. I can find amazing people around me that can help me with those roles. A mom is so easily trapped into thinking that I have to be everything.
Yes.
I have to save my kids. No, you have to go out there and slay.
Yeah.
You have to kill. You have to hustle. And your kids can look at you as an example. My son looking at me as a strong woman. My daughter looking at me as a strong woman and say, well, if mom can do it,
so
and we know mom.
Yeah.
Snigger. laugh. Then, maybe I can do it too.
Yeah.
And that was a catalyst for changing my life in a lot of ways. I entered Mrs. South Africa. And then it's been a constant series of failures. And that's been the best part. Because people see where you are now and they think, well, how do I get there?
Yeah.
Darling, go and fail a lot.
And I think most people don't realize that. They think like, okay, you made Mrs. South Africa, everything must have gone fantastic after that because there's so many things happening around you. But in actual fact, just that competition itself, going through that, the journey after that, with the host of other things you have to deal with in your personal life and with your daughter, it's actually a lot more to deal with than it looks from the outside.
Absolutely. And I wish we could train ourselves and our kids from a young age to be more resilient to the hardships of life because they are inevitable. I am an optimistic realist. I always hope and plan for the best, but why are we ill prepared for pain? I really battle with this because literally yesterday and today, I'll go through something it's tough, but why is my reaction so extreme when this is a healthy process?
Yes.
And certainly talking about failure, Mrs. South Africa, imagine being crowned as the most successful pinnacle of a married woman in South Africa, and at the same time your marriage is falling apart.
Yeah.
So I got divorced in the year I was crowned.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, something that it certainly broke me and then rebuilt me, because I think, what defines me? Who am I now? And I had to sort of rebuild that construct. And everything that I've done, I've sort of failed at it first before ever succeeding. My very first mountain climb, I got airlifted off the mountain almost dead with altitude sickness.
Wow.
And that was Everest Base Camp.
Wow.
And then I fell in love with the mountains and learned how to respect them. And now we have a love relationship instead of a hate relationship.
Do you find that a lot of people, when they experience the first version of pain in a situation, they tend to back down and they don't understand that through this process I'm going to find my strength, and I might not ever define my identity in its completion, but going through this process is going to get me closer to that. How has that been for you so far within finding yourself through all of these, which seemed at the time really tough experiences, but now really boosted you to what you're doing right now?
That is exactly right. I think I read it in a Bear Grylls book. He was talking about the definition of success. I love adventure, so it appealed to me. There's all these multitudes of books that talk about the 75 principles of success. Yes, there's a lot you can do about your attitude, your communication, your goal setting, etc. But he says, at the end of the day, the people that succeed are the ones that just push a little bit harder, a little bit longer. They're the people that survive on a desert island, and they're the people that build big businesses. And I have faced enormous hurdles in entrepreneurship as starting new businesses, multiple businesses. And I think it's just those knocks to be able to just take them and bounce back and re-navigate and find a different path. Instead of just backing away and fleeing from every challenging situation.
In a South African context, what do you think the main reason is that people tend to just give up? Because in my surroundings, and one of the reasons we wanted to have the show was to show people that giving up is the thing that's holding you back, and not realizing that the pain is necessary for your growth.
Yes. This is a very interesting one, and I've spent some time in the recent years traveling. I am a massive South African fan. I want to invest all my energy in South Africa. I'm passionate about being a South African. But every time I travel, I try and assess the energy of a country and what makes them rise and fall. And I was recently in India at the beginning of the year. They have, I don't know how to say this, they have massive obstacles as a country.
Yes, they do.
And just the circumstances that the majority of Indians live in, especially in their cities, and the overcrowding and densification of their cities, it's horrific circumstances that they live in. And yet, you are yet to meet nicer, kinder, friendlier, more optimistic people. And I think that there's this spirit of, maybe I can. And I don't know why we're lacking that in South Africa. I do see it a lot more in the youth coming through, but only in certain segments. We have a nation of complainers.
Oh, very true.
I recently been a judge on something called Sponsors of Brave. It's a profiling show that talks about heroes in healthcare and the frontline workers. And we sat there and we actually analysed these stories of amazing human beings that are doing incredible things. But all we can do is complain about the local pharmacist or that doctor who got that script wrong. It's so easy to complain. And I do agree we need to hold people accountable to standards. But us South Africans, we're really good at complaining. And if I could do one thing, it would be just to change that. Because instead of sitting there and complaining about what's wrong, how can you fix it?
Yeah, how can you do and help what's right? What I find also very interesting about that conversation particularly is, in South Africa, we have this culture of, if you do better than I do, then I have something negative to say about you because you can't be where you are and I can't go anywhere. What do you feel like that actually does for the youth that's coming up right now and their mindsets with regards to their careers and their purpose goals?
It's a tough one, and I've experienced it firsthand. We have this spoken culture of queens fix each other's crowns, but it is not something we live, because women are very quick to knock down other women. It is not the supportive environment that we want. There's a lot of cyberbullying, there's a lot of judgment and mommy shaming, and it all comes from a place of deep insecurity within women. But you do have the light bringers, and I recently got a phone call just now with Zari. She's this incredible woman that runs her own college. She's from Africa, now lives in South Africa, and is just doing so many amazing projects in her community. And all she can talk about is her other friends who are killing it. She's talking about her other friends that are slaying. And she's busy talking and uplifting DJ Zinhle and Muesli and everything they do. No, you don't have to pay me a cent. If they're working on a project, I'll work on it with them. It's the spirit of collaboration, and I'm such a fan because there's such a scarcity mentality in South Africa with opportunities and jobs and ideas. There is more out there, more opportunity than we could ever imagine if we could collaborate.
So I feel like in our business, we try to do this. We try to collaborate with small businesses, specifically because of the fact that I think as South Africans, we have this idea that if I work with someone in a similar industry as me, or if I try to help someone, a small business or whatever out, that they're going to steal the thunder from me, and then I'm not going to get all the glowing glory. But it's not about the glory at the end of the day. It's about assisting your fellow, entrepreneur to grow their business as well. In everything that you do, how are you incorporating kind of collaboration in your businesses?
I will always collaborate at the risk of being taken advantage of, always. Because rather be taken advantage of and develop a relationship along the way with the multitudes of people in a project. And you will never lose. I have never lost anything by collaborating, only gained. And I have literally gotten to where I have today by standing on other people's shoulders. And I will always let people stand on mine. So, when I talk about mountain climbing and we go on uprising adventures, I collaborate with experts in their areas. I will never go and walk up a mountain and take people with me and say, follow me guys, I am the expert and I know everything. People try and do that all the time.
Yes.
Listen, I've never climbed this mountain before. These are the experts, they're taking us up. Let's go together. And it's the same with when we host a live event and we get people on stage who collaborate with incredible humans who've got the experience in that area that we're focusing on. And then certainly in my luxury magazine, Luxury Lifestyle, I have collaborated with incredible ambassadors, micro-influencers in their communities that have real authentic followings. They want to be linked to Luxury Lifestyle, but we want to be connected with what they're doing on the ground at the same time. So it's such a win-win and amazing synergistic relationship.
That is fantastic. Well, so I know you have the Lux magazine, and then you're doing Impact Hub as well, which has brought amazing conversations. And I watched the most recent conference that you had online.
And in our previous live event before lockdown.
Yeah, and the speakers you have are just fantastic. But also then you did Survivor after, Mrs. South Africa. How are you managing to do all of these things? Because I think for many of us, especially now in lockdown, we're realizing I was so busy, but I wasn't focusing on my life and who I am and where I want to go with my life. How do you do all of these amazing things and still come back to yourself at the end of the day?
I think it's a change of mindset, first and foremost. We were taught when we grew up, you have a 3-phase life. You go to school and you get educated, you go to work and you get a job, and then you retire.
Yes.
That life does not exist anymore. We now live a multi-phase life. And within each phase, we have multiple different roles we can fill. Yes, you can qualify as a pharmacist, as I did, and then you can transition into events and marketing, and then you can transition into adventuring. And for me, I certainly hope I get to transition into a whole lot of other things.
Yeah.
But people are so limited by what they've been told by society they're allowed to be. And this is why I'm such a rebel with a cause.
Yes.
Because I'm told by society I'm a beauty queen, I don't get to climb mountains. And I think that was one of the reasons, it's a silly reason, but to go on something like Survivor.
Yeah.
It's to go on there and have no makeup and no hair, and you look terrible and you smell even worse. But more than that, it's more than superficial. It exposes the darkest side of your soul for the public to see. And that is such a healthy process, because we're so precious with ourselves, with these self-inflicted expectations of who we think we are, that just let it go. Just embrace who you are, who you want to go, where you want to go. Embrace failure and embrace the change along the way.
What I love is that you say you have to really face the darkest part of yourself. And I think all of us that watch Survivor, we're under the impression that, oh, well, this is all TV stuff and whatever. But I mean, it's really like a rough experience. Because I saw Rob the other day post about how much weight he lost on the show. What was going through your mind like in the toughest times on the show?
The toughest times, I can honestly say, if I'm honest with you, this is the crazy part. We missed that island.
Really?
I lost 13 kilograms. There were periods of 4 days that I went without food.
Wow.
We were there in cyclone season, so it was very wet. Our feet were rotting from trench foot because they were constantly wet. We would eat dry rice at times because we couldn't start a fire to cook. But it was beautiful. We had this singular mission and focus, and united in the teams that we were in, and the alliances that we had. It was simple, and we were changing. It was growth. It was beautiful. And this is what we'll talk about every tough season in our life. At the time, we couldn't wait for it to be over. If I think back about ICU with my daughter, and those 6 weeks, it was actually 8 weeks that we were in ICU together. I was living in a ward downstairs. I was expressing, trying to keep her fed, trying to give her the best nutrition possible. It was dark days. But I formed my basis ethos for who I wanted to be in those weeks. I think about the most devastating, gut-wrenching, emotional times of my life when my marriage fell apart. Overnight, felt like someone died.
Wow.
I will never forget those days, but I look back on them with gratitude.
And if you go through them, you can get through anything.
Yes.
Wow. I think that's the best lesson to teach people about how to change your mindset, because most of us are trying to change our mindset based on what we see other people doing, and they're so successful, they've come through all these things, but we've actually got within ourselves experiences that we've pushed through that can actually teach us that I can actually do more than what I'm expecting to do. And your story just so to end of the show, I'm going to ask everyone that we do this interview with, because the show is called Owning This Life, I want to know what you think owning this life means to you and what it may mean to you going forward, particularly now in a year that has devastated most of the world.
Oh, I love that question, owning this life. I love the title of your show. I love you and your energy. Owning this life is something that should be adopted by every single human. This sense of ownership. I was even talking about it with an entrepreneurship angle on a previous show that I did earlier. It's about not sitting back as an employee mindset to say, okay, I've been given a job and a desk and tools, and I have a set of objectives. No. I have an open space and plans. What am I designing? And the minute you can actually grasp, I am responsible for where I am and where I'm going, it's so empowering. But the place you have to start is you are in your life exactly where you want to be. And that's the hard part. Get me right, aside from unchangeable circumstances like where you were born and genetic diseases and all those sorts of things, I, Nicole, am right now in my life where I've chosen to be. The relationship, the circumstances, the job, the career, etc. Right? Sometimes you've chosen to be there deliberately, and sometimes it's these small subconscious choices you've made along the way that have resulted in the life that you have.
100%.
Own that.
Yes.
And that you can just accept that and say, oh, wow, I've made some more choices. Then you can stand up and say, okay, how do I deliberately decide where I'm going? I will design my life. I will choose the next few steps that I take deliberately. What am I eating if I want to have certain health or fitness or competitive athletic results? Or what am I doing in my business financially planning? Am I doing business plans if I want to have my business in a certain position? What am I doing communication-wise with friends and relationships if I want to maintain them? It's this conscious thought that you're the architect of your own future. I know it sounds arrogant and narcissistic.
No, but it's true.
It is.
Because at the end of the day, I think most of us don't want to accept that a lot of our circumstances are self-created. And we want it's nice to blame everything around us and nice to blame the people who affected our lives. But at the end of the day, if someone affected your life, you actually allowed them to come in and do whatever they felt like. And we don't ever take full responsibility for the decisions we've made in our life. And I think personal growth and inner growth takes that step. You have to kind of look at yourself in the face and say, damn.
Exactly. Exactly. I heard a podcast recently by an American psychologist, and he was analyzing the whole COVID-19 problem and the reason why it's causing so much anxiety in us. And he said, it's funny, humans that come to this point where they need therapy for something and psychology to be able to deal with a massive issue, it's usually point 20 or point 19. They don't look at that point 1 to 19 along a whole process of events that have unraveled, and suddenly they're here and they're like, but what happened? Well, how did you not see this?
How did you miss everything that happened before? Yeah. Wow. No, that's really inspiring. I'm so glad that you were able to come here. You're so busy. You've inspired me. And I'm so glad to have had the opportunity to even meet you, because I've watched you guys at Impact Hub. I've seen all the things that you do, how you're inspiring other people. And I've been around enough people, especially who are celebrity in South Africa, who come across as genuine, but then you meet them and then you figure out that there's actually another reason for why they do what they do. But with you, it always comes across as so authentic, which I really appreciate.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for taking out the time to meet with me today. It's always a pleasure speaking to you.
Well, it's been amazing. I love having these discussions, but especially with people as enlightened as yourself. So please continue doing what you're doing.
It's a pleasure. And thank you, Owning This Life family, for tuning in today. I really appreciate your time. I hope you've gained a wealth of knowledge from Nicole today. You need to know that if you're in a struggle place right now, especially with 2020, that there is a way through that. Just look through the struggles you've been through in your life and figure out how you got through those. If you need any more information on Owning This Life, go to www.owningthislife.co.za, and if you have any suggestions or any questions, you can email me on info@owningthislife.co.za. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I can't wait to see you guys again.